My name is Yotam. This is an impromptu discussion. Anyone's open to chime in. I'm going to share some experiences about Bitcoin mining. I think the label of my talk is surviving a bear market and working with other people. And I'm just going to share what I know through my own experience and hopefully give you guys some insight on how to stay profitable and not go out of business. In the past day or so, I noticed a common theme in the conference of to the moon and hyper optimism, and not a lot of talk about protecting your investments as you're building a mine. So let me give you a couple examples as to the risks involved. I started mining in 2017. I started mining with S9s, and I had the rock bottom power cost that I know of. I was paying sub 3 cents, 2.5 cents a kilowatt. And we're doing very well. And the market fell. And we were basically almost mining at a loss, even at 2.5 cents. And that was with not the most modern equipment, but certainly modern enough to think that you'd sustain profitability. It was a difficult experience, and my goal is to help protect people and their investments, not make mistakes, some that I made and some good things I did that kept me in business. So I've really 3 rules of thumb to getting into Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin mining properly. And I think this holds water mostly for people who are self-funded, aren't inherently wealthy, and are relying on their close friends and network for resources. And you have to make decisions in a way that you can hedge yourself, because there is a lot of risk involved, a ton of risk. The Bitcoin product is highly volatile, and knowing when to exit and enter the market with equipment purchases and Bitcoin sales is key. So here we go. My 3 basic rules are: don't get into business, Bitcoin mining, without having the lowest possible, within reason, operating cost. It seems basic. What I notice is as Bitcoin rises and the enthusiasm rises, people are convincing themselves that profitability will only increase, and the risk of getting in at not the best time is negligible based on the future of Bitcoin. But the truth is that until Bitcoin gets to where it needs to go for everyone to realize financial freedom, there will be market downturns and corrections, and as a miner, your costs are astronomical. You need to protect yourself during those times. So first, having the lowest possible operating cost is key. I would, me personally, I'm looking to expand my mine. I'm stuck on capital like most people. I'm currently mining 4 megawatts properly. I'm below 4 cents. Based on what I understand the industry and the competitive nature of what's happening in mining, I would pick a kilowatt cost and stick to it and not bend my rules. So for instance, right now you may be profitable mining at 6, 7, 8, and 9 cents, but during the downturn that I experienced, even 2.5 cents wasn't profitable with last-gen equipment. So my rule of thumb is 4 cents. I would not build a mine if I had to pay more than 4 cents a kilowatt. Plain and simple. One argument against this is I have the newest equipment, and I'm killing it. I can afford to pay 10 cents. Your new equipment will be old equipment soon. The monopoly on the hardware market is crazy. You're basically receiving someone's second-hand technology. I'm pretty sure that most of the large firms, Bitmain and MicroBT, are most likely giving preferred interest to people they know, to better equipment, better running equipment, including software and so on and so forth. And the rest of us are basically paying retail. Definitely, in order to protect yourself, you have to have the best equipment. I used to buy used equipment to get in for pennies on the dollar. I was buying S9s at $2,000, and I was buying them at $200. And I quickly realized after the downturn, that even though I was getting in for less money per terahash, I wouldn't survive any serious market corrections if I didn't have the most efficient equipment. So the second point is equipment efficiency. So it's tempting to buy things that we can afford in volume. It's almost like stock in general. We want to buy whole numbers, right? We want to buy pieces of something, and I'd rather have 100 machines than one machine all day. But the truth is, if that one machine has better efficiency and output than the 100, it's a safer bet, right? So I think making those decisions is difficult for a new miner, and I highly encourage everyone to focus on these couple rules I'm giving you. So the first rule was ultimate efficiency and costs, and that's your power cost. If you don't have 4 cent power, don't get in the game. That's my advice. One of these days, these mega conglomerates will dominate the industry, and they will be profitable at 2 cents. And they have the capital even to afford to maintain losses. So here's this scenario: you spend all your money building a mine. Right now, the entry cost is a couple $1 million a megawatt. When I got in, it was $500,000 a megawatt. So at this point, you spend all your money building a mine and you're hashing, and your valuable coin, I assume everyone listened to the Michael Saylor talk, is something you want to hold on to as long as you can. As a miner, you have to pay your way, right? So typically, at 4 cents, depending on what equipment you're running, currently, roughly 20% of your earnings or so is going to go towards your power cost. On a market dip, it could be as much as 80 or 90 or 100% of your earnings if your costs aren't appropriate. So what that means is, in order to survive a market downturn properly and not have to liquidate your hard-earned Bitcoin for cash that pales in comparison to the future liquidation price, you have to have capital. So my third rule of thumb is maintain liquidity. It's been my experience in mining hundreds of Bitcoin was a lot of strife in making decisions on when to sell, when to reinvest. So how it works is you start a mine, you want to keep building. You're creating Bitcoin, and then you're trading. If you don't have new capital, which is most people's problem, you're trading your hard-earned Bitcoin for spot pricing, and then you're buying machines. And how the market works, obviously, is against the economics that's profitable is when Bitcoin is up, machines are expensive. When Bitcoin is down, machines are less expensive. So if you wait for Bitcoin to go up to buy your machines because your coin is high and you want to liquidate when your coin is high, you end up trading your high dollar Bitcoin for high dollar machines, and you'd have the same value if you waited till it went low and you traded your low value Bitcoin for low value machines for the same amount of hash power. So the idea is to maintain liquidity, to capitalize on market entrances and exits, right? So I think it's very important to recognize bear and bull markets as a miner and not have this like super optimistic perspective that it's always going up, and that it's a safe idea or a good idea to buy or invest on any given day. I completely disagree. So me, for instance, I'm dying to grow my business from 4 megawatts plus, and I'm currently not purchasing any hardware. I think the price is egregious. A couple of years ago, when Bitcoin sank at all, machine prices would follow suit in a reasonable time frame. Because of the institutional demand, I'm noticing that even though Bitcoin wavers or has a significant drop at any given time, machine pricing is staying steady. And that's because there are big buyers that are going much longer than you are, and they have the capital to survive the downturns. They don't care if they acquire their machine at $10,000 or $5,000 and so on and so forth. So the name of the game is ROI, right? Return on investment in a reasonable time frame. So if you're buying into a bull market, machines are priced according to ROI, technically from the manufacturers. So Bitmain will allow you to make back your money on your machine purchase in 8 to 12 months or 8 to 14 months. And that works as long as difficulty doesn't increase and as long as Bitcoin remains more or less where at the time where you bought it at. So what this means is if you're buying your machinery at a bull market and you have a 12 to 16 month ROI calculated, and you enter a bear market, your ROI is obliterated. And you'll find yourself struggling to make sense of what just occurred. You tell yourself, oh, if I just waited, it would have been lower. So the question is, when do you enter the market? When do you deploy your capital? This is a very difficult question to answer. I wanted to ask Michael Saylor that question. And it was interesting. I don't know if you guys noticed, he was kind of mentioning that if he was us, he would focus on buying Bitcoin and not mining Bitcoin. He said mine Bitcoin to borrow money to buy more Bitcoin. So obviously he's long and just wants to acquire more Bitcoin. For most of us, we're not inherently wealthy, and we need to use some of our profits to live, right? So at what point is it acceptable to liquidate your mined Bitcoin for money to live your life? You can't just hoard it forever. That's not a life to be lived. So this is something I'm struggling with myself personally. My rule of thumb is if it seems like I'm in a bull market, which it seems probable, if not obvious, I would not buy equipment. And that's mainly based on the fact that I wouldn't have the capital to support my business during a bear market if I acquire at these costs. If that makes sense to everyone. So just one more time on the 3 rules. Operating cost, it's a no-brainer. I entered this conference thinking that was a universal rule of thumb. Everyone knew, okay, cheaper the power, the better off you are. And if you don't have cheap power, you're not going to get in. But apparently people see dollars during bull markets, and they're willing to take higher risks that they don't even know are risks. So for instance, you may not see a risk at mining at 5, 6, 7 cents right now, but what you may not have experienced is early 2018, when even at 2.5 cents, that'd be me, barely turned a profit. If I was mining at 3 cents, I would be out of business. I survived a major bear market downturn with very little capital. And the way I'm going to protect myself in the future is by not growing in any other manner than having rock bottom operating costs. My rule of thumb is 4 cents. I'll stick to it for a long time. If your power contract is above that, it's questionable. Basically, if at some point you're above the average mining operational cost, as soon as your equipment is no longer the newest equipment and there's equipment to trump your efficiency, you're no longer competitive. And it's just a matter of time until you need to reinvest. So it's a difficult calculation on when to reinvest and when to liquidate Bitcoin. There's no right answer. But from what I understand and gather today with my experience, exiting the market is critical, right? Maintaining liquidity is critical for the next step in your business development. I'm talking to a lot of people the past couple of days that they hold forever, right? And they continue looking for dollar investments to buy machines. And their idea is that one day the Bitcoin will be worth a fortune. And at that point, I guess they're envisioning liquidating for dollars. But Bitcoin runs on a cycle. It's a tentative 4-year cycle, right, guys, based on halving. It's been proven a couple times, but it's not definite. I actively sell Bitcoin. I'm a miner. I sell Bitcoin all the time. Michael Saylor advised not to. And he's right in theory if you had unlimited funds to sustain your business. But most of us don't. Actually, probably most 9 out of 10 people don't. In an effort to keep as much coin as possible for the long run, I strategically sell coin. I sell coin when I think the profit is reasonable. One thing that's not often discussed is what's the correlation of the value of Bitcoin to the cost of producing a Bitcoin. So for instance, I come from a manufacturing background, and I judge value by what it takes to make the product, right? So for instance, if I go purchase a piece of furniture and it costs $100, I say to myself, is it a good deal? If it costs $1 to make, I know the middleman is making 100x, and that doesn't seem like a reasonable markup to me. If it costs $50 or $75, it seems like a fair market value to purchase the item based on actual cost, right? So I like to mention that in my calculations on when to buy and sell and trade Bitcoin and buy equipment is I look at the actual cost to make Bitcoin. I noticed a pattern in the last cycle market, which to me is every 4 years, but debatable, that on the bull run, Bitcoin gets to a number that's a multiple of the cost to mine Bitcoin at that time. So during the 2018 run, how much did it cost to mine a Bitcoin? Anybody know? Depending on the day and what equipment you had, on average, it costs approximately $3,000 to mine a Bitcoin. I'm watching the asset go up in value, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, who's buying Bitcoin and why? All right, they're buying at 6,000. That makes sense. It costs $3,000 to make. All right, in any retail or business setting, someone's allowed to make double their money. No problem. Makes sense to me. But how about when it gets to 15,000 and 20,000? At what point does it become egregious? Who's going to buy a product that costs so little to make at X dollars, right? So from my perspective, the crash was looming just based on understanding or believing that there's going to be a point where people don't believe they're getting value at the price they're paying for. So us miners were interested in mining Bitcoin because effectively the concept is every dollar you spend buying a miner or mining produces you more dollars back in Bitcoin in the future. And that's what you're betting on. The model works, but it only works if you enter and exit the market properly. So let's take a bear market, for instance. So mid-2018 went the crash. It costs still roughly $3,000 to mine a Bitcoin, and how low did it go, guys? 3,500 or whatever and change? So if you had a mid-range power cost, you'd have been at a loss. So my guesstimate, and I don't have any formal calculation aside from just intuition, is during a bear market, Bitcoin can go as low as 1.0, 1.2, 1.3x the cost of Bitcoin, right? So in my humble opinion, I would expect to be able to survive that multiple any given time during a bear market. Does that make sense, guys? All right. So for me, I've been liquidating coin. What's the current cost to mine a Bitcoin? I don't know if anybody knows. And what do you got? Fair enough. So I'm at 12 grand, let's say. Let's just say a round number, let's say 10 grand. It's a little aggressive, but let's just say 10 grand. So we reached a high of, let's say $70,000. That's a 7x multiple of the cost to manufacture Bitcoin. Would I buy a chair that costs $100 to make for $700? I'm not so sure, right? So for me, it's a sell flag, sell signal. It's a no-brainer, which is why I'm liquidating coin. It may not be the most profitable decision to liquidate coin regularly as you're mining, but I can guarantee you it's the safest decision. Maintain liquidity. There will be a market downturn, and being prepared for it is very important. So guys, don't mine at higher cost than absolutely necessary. So above 4 cents, don't touch it. 5 cents is okay, fine for now. But like Michael Saylor said, this space is going to get very aggressive. So if you don't keep up with that aggressive costs, you're not going to make it in the long run. Second would be to have the best equipment and maintaining it. I was speaking to someone who said their business plan was to take their older equipment and mine elsewhere as they acquire new equipment. My statement was, why don't you just sell your old equipment and get newer equipment? At some point, your equipment won't be good. So you have to make a decision on when to liquidate, when to upgrade, and there'd be some holding periods involved. I'm a prime example for you. I'm speaking from experience. I want to grow my mine. I'm dying to. I'm working on 5 and 20 megawatt opportunities that I'm securing. I'm looking for financing. If I had the money to buy the equipment, I wouldn't buy it. We're in a high market. It may get higher, but there's still a risk involved in entering at this point, based on my theory of cost to manufacture Bitcoin or produce a Bitcoin to Bitcoin value in the market. Wrapping it up. Okay. And lastly, the liquidity comment. It's critical. I recommend to anybody just getting started or anyone who's been investing in Bitcoin, who's been holding for a long time, at some point you have to decouple from the concept that you're going to hold Bitcoin forever. That's like saying you might as well just hold it for your children's children and you'll never actually use the money for anything. A lot of people's concept is you can borrow against it, fiat currency at certain percentages, but those have risks, right? If there's a market downturn, there could be a margin call and your loan against your coin could be liquidated. Just to wrap it up, want to let everyone know just to be cautious. Don't buy the hype in general. Bitcoin's something to be excited about, but I think caution is an extremely important point. So that's my take, guys. Any question? Sure.
You mentioned survive a bear market, you really should operate 2 to 3 cents a kilowatt hour. What in up to 4 max? Where can you get that kind of?
Great question. It's out there, and it's out there on huge scales. It's difficult to acquire because it's so aggressively sought after currently, right? So the latter half of my speech or talk that I'm not going to be able to get to because I have to hand over the mic is going to be the unity working with your peer segment. We cannot compete individually against the buying power of a major corporation. So the idea would be to, instead of jockeying for power contracts against the guy next to you, because everyone in the room is looking for the same thing, it'd be to link up, buy together the power, and live happily ever after.
Is there a group that does that?
It's a great question. I think, based on the feedback I've had in the past couple of days, I'm thinking about getting involved maybe. This is one of my first times being in a public space, one of my first times being on stage, have a microphone in my hand. And my biggest concern in general was, would people understand what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Am I resonating? And from the feedback I got so far in the conference, and even right now your question showing me that you're paying attention, shows that, some of my argument holds water to people. And if I can help everybody avoid the near destruction that I went through, guys, I was at 2.5 cents a kilowatt. It was a dream price at the time, right? This is like the wild west of Bitcoin mining, and I barely survived. I say, instead of everyone calling the same power brokers, power companies that are being advertised from green to oil to gas, I said we start a coalition. Plain and simple. Right now, Bitmain, if you buy retail for machines, you're paying a markup. No big deal. Markup usually reasonable from a dealer. But the way to do it, and the way to make money is buying wholesale everything. Right now, Bitmain's min order is about $10 million. Who has $10 million? If you have it, call me. If not, call me anyway, and we'll get together $10 million together, and we'll make the purchase. Yep. Anything else on the subject matter? What do you got?
At 2.5 cents, what do you know what month and 18 and price point went hardware? And was that spot profitability or was it unprofitable for like the entire course of the month?
It's been a long time since then. A lot of mining since then. I was running S9s, 14 terahashes. Some of them overclocked, some of them not. 2.5 cents and change, and for 3 weeks we had a scratch profit, and it was very scary. Sometime in there. So when Bitcoin got sub 4,000. All right, guys. Nice talking to everybody. Hope I can actually meet more people. If anybody found my information relevant, I'd love for you to reach out. And this gentleman mentioned about a coalition. I think it's a fantastic idea. And if I can help facilitate that, and some people can show me additional interest, help motivate some group organization, I'd be very interested in being a part of that. Thanks, guys.